Here we are, and welcome to Unfiltered Dealer Talk. And I've got Daughtry on with me, and boy, we're on together. So this is kind of cool. So we're doing this live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so before we get started, for those that may not know who I am, I'm Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for automotive dealers throughout the USA and Canada. I mean, for many, many years. I've been in the automotive industry for over 30 years. But I work with dealer folks, whether it be franchise, independent, but probably more franchise than independent. But from the time that that customer touches down on that dealership website, the importance of being able to respond to that customer and working with sales associates in presentation negotiation to working with our desk managers, because we know how important those desk managers are and how that aligns with the entire team from sales to F&I, and also working with F&I to finalizing that transaction, either with a full-time F&I manager or hybrid sales associate. Okay, so listen up. We are going live on LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Facebook, and now X. And so if you like what we're talking about, and I hope that you do, because we are talking about this unbiased news, what's really happening in the trenches, and maybe what some of the vendors and or product providers may not want to talk about so much. So I've got a terrific person here with me, Jean, now. And if you wouldn't mind, please share with everyone, dealers and viewers, your bio.
Hey, everybody, I was letting Becky talk there, and I didn't interrupt her one time, and that's hard for me to do that, but I'm Gene Daughtry, and just like Becky, even though I look more the part, I've been in the business 35 years myself, and I'm only 45, you can tell, but it has been, I'm buy here, pay here, mostly buy here, pay here, lease here, pay here, which has been coming on more lately. I do spend a lot of time in and out of franchise dealers, but because they deal in buy here, pay here, so built stores, created operations, done a lot of consulting, helping dealers get procedures together, help them set up service departments in their operation, help them with sales, and a lot of collections. Which on Becky's side, the dealers don't really have to worry about doing collections, but on our side, it's a big part. The whole business is really about collecting, being a finance company. So I think that we got a lot of things that, and I know we do, because Becky and I have had a lot of conversations, which kind of drove us doing this podcast. It's like we're having great conversation. I think people enjoy listening to us talk about the business and the things that are the same, and then there's things that are completely different. And it just makes for some interesting conversation. So that's where I come from. A lot of buy here, pay here, and happy to help. And I go in and out of dealerships every few days and have been doing that for many years, just like Becky on her side. So we're going to talk about that. And so what were we going to talk about today? Turnover, I think.
That's right. Turnover in dealerships. So, I mean, that was a big, I had a blog, posted a blog on LinkedIn recently on turnover, and it got a lot of eyes, a lot of comments, and frankly, we've got some concerns there in the franchise world when it comes to turnover, and a lot of that, frankly, could be due to folks being complacent, but the lack of training and accountability and holding our folks to higher standards. And, and the other thing that I think that dealers need to take a look at is people fire other people. People want to work with the people that they resonate with, that speaks to who they are. You and I had this brilliant conversation about millennials and what's happening in that whole space. And frankly, on my end, now I think maybe a little bit maybe different in that these guys don't necessarily, they're not all about doing shaky business, right? And it's painful for them to do stuff that they know that perhaps they shouldn't be doing. And to tie that millennial with those types of practices is a tough way to go. And we probably have a lot of turnover because of that as well. I talked to a dealer the other day, and he was talking about how important compliance is with turnover.
Yeah, and I get that, and and we're saying millennial, but we may be talking a little bit of Gen. What I don't even know, Gen X, Gen Z, but the younger folks. My children are 30 years old, so probably right in that area, and so it is definitely they look at things completely differently than I look at things, and so yeah, I do. They don't want to do things that make them feel uncomfortable. And if they don't understand what's going on, or if you leave them to be trained by the old guys or the more seasoned, they've been with you a couple of years, the guys on the floor are doing the training who are telling them the shortcuts to make the most money and not necessarily the right process. That could make them, make some of these younger folks and millennials uncomfortable. And something that I always say, Becky, I don't know if I said this to you before, whatever we talk about is not 100%. There is this wide spectrum of people that it'll be affected differently. But as a rule, the younger folks just don't look at things the same way that I do. And so a lot of the people that we deal with and buy here, pay here, and lease here, pay here, it's less a desk manager and more the owner or somebody that's close to the general manager is right below the owner, maybe a partner. And so they're a lot closer to working day in, day out with the employees versus a desk manager. And then there's a whole hierarchy there. And so that's a little bit of a different world.
Yeah, I imagine it would be, when you're working. So again, a conversation last night that I had with a dealer was the fact that he's much more hands-on. And when you have someone that is more hands-on, he knows what's going on, right? He gets it. And he thrives on the fact that he keeps his folks in alignment. He believes in alignment from sales to desk to finance. And so do I. I mean, we couldn't speak, better language together because that happens when we're cohesive and we're all working for the same cause and reason. Things just, they work and you get into the zone and it's like folks like working with something that they know that's consistent, that they can take ownership with, and pride. Pride is a big word. And I think dealers, we got to get back to the pride moment.
Well, and that's true, and that part of that goes to what you were just talking about, made me think of something that I've taught dealers about when I go in there and talk about starting a brand new operation, which it's similar. Just hiring somebody new is the same as a brand. We want the first customer that they have contact with to get 100% of the experience that we want to have. We have a design plan. We have a design sales process. We want every customer to get 100% of that and not feel like they got handled by the trainee. And so, that's definitely want to make sure that whoever's managing them when they first are out there, given them plenty of opportunity to learn, did role playing, and that vision of how a deal should be done is what is experienced by the very first customer that they deal with, and it's shared by the employee. You can't just throw them out there and say, go out there and shake hands with them and bring them in and ask them what they want to do. I've been places where that was kind of how things worked, and you're going to lose those guys. A lot of those guys are going to turn over on you because they just are uncomfortable. They're not sure what they're doing. And then somebody else in the dealership gets upset because they're making a mistake. They're not doing it right and getting on their case about it because the stresses are there. We got to produce, we got to sell. We can't miss a lead. We got to take care of it. And that stress will pound onto the millennial, the younger folks that might not have they haven't developed that thick skin that it takes to be at the car dealership every day, and they're not really even sure they want to develop it. So,
yeah, I think that's a different way. Years back when I first got into the car business, right, and I showed up, knocked on Al Packer, Lincoln, and Mercury's door, and said, "Hey, hire me to sell cars." Well, I'm going to tell you right now, they didn't want to hire me. They said, Well, here's the deal, Becky. You're a female. Females don't
Yeah.
sell cars. I mean, go back into accounting, go take a clerk job somewhere,
Yeah.
but not here. And
In the office, yeah.
well, right. And so it was like trying to convince these guys to give me a shot, and they do. And, they were thinking, how long could she possibly last? 30 days. But I ended up holding out a lot longer and proved that I had the car gene in my blood. But I was feisty. I was very independent. I still am. Very independent, and nothing was going to get me. Nothing was going to floor me. I mean, there were a couple times. I mean, it isn't. It's a completely different world today, right? It wasn't anything. It's not anything. I don't think quite like it was when I was in growing up in the business. But which is a good thing. But I still think you still have to have some sort of thick skin. The thing is that females don't do well trying to figure stuff out. They need to have a plan. They need to have a roadmap. They need someone there to mentor them, to support them, that have a consistent process that they can follow. When you send someone up to when you send someone up to a training room or the cafe or the lunchroom, and say, watch these videotapes and figure it all out, and then I want you to go and sell cars.
Yeah,
That does not work. It is a tough way to go.
it is. It is. And I'm glad you said all those things about there wasn't, you were the only woman, or go back and work in the office or whatever, because it was that way 30 years ago, 35, 40 years ago. And, obviously it has changed dramatically. I've been in some dealerships in the last year, and it was pretty much all females, women, ladies running the place, and having all the positions. And that would have never happened before. And I agree that, the logical mind versus the emotional mind and all those things that they told us back in the day, there's some validity to that. We just have to do, like you said, let's show you. And everyone really needs to get shown how to do their job and how to do what they need to do at your dealership to get a customer from the point of, hi, my name's Gene, how are you doing, to driving over the curb in the car. What do they have to do within that dealership to get that deal done, and not just go out there and say hi to them and then let's find out who they are and then we'll help you out after that. There is on the job training there, but it's not cannot be that way from the get-go. And everybody has to be looked at differently. All these employees have to be looked at a little bit differently, because you're motivated by some things and I'm motivated by maybe some other different things. And what is critical to us, we're tools. I tell everybody, it used to be tool was kind of an insult, but it's not. It's a logical way to look at an employee or a team member as a tool. They have special talent, they have ability. What is that? Find out what that is. That's what you use that tool for. And
so we have a question.
We have a question. Okay, let's go.
From Mike Moran. Hey, Mike, glad you're here. I don't know if you're still here, but glad you are. The question is, how can dealers protect their reputation with high employee turnover?
That's a tough one, because that's actually a part of your reputation, is what you're doing as far as turnover. How do we get the employees to stop turning over becomes part of your reputation. And so really that's the question, is what is the reputation? It was something, and buy here, pay here in markets that I've been in 4 different states, and I opened up stores myself and done all those things. And I found that there were people that would never come to our dealership. They had no business, wanted to come, never wanted to. Well, they didn't know what we needed to do, or they misconstrued what we did. And, and so I don't want a bad reputation causing people that will never come see you, no matter what you do in marketing. And so we have to try to we have to work on the turnover part to help the reputation. It's got to be a fun place to work. The people have to be that are working there And I bet it doesn't turn over everybody. I'm sure there's a core of people that stay there and have been there. And what do they feel? What do they tell you? Why do they stay? They hate change, or they make a good living, or they enjoy the atmosphere, or you give them enough time off. Whatever it is, that the ones that are not turning over or telling you why, feed off of that, and let's see if we can get that word out into the marketplace to help the reputation.
I
Uh,
think that there's something to be said about that. But here's how I feel. I think it's important that, and what you're saying is there's a lot of truth to that. But I think we need to grow our folks internally. I had another conversation earlier this afternoon, and we were talking about dealers are always having to bring someone else in. You know, the best next superstar hired from another dealership that has bad habits. It always happens.
of
If in
course,
fact we can cultivate internally and grow our folks, this is how this stuff stops. It is our culture, it is our folks that we internally grow to make a difference. It's when you bring in the brilliant, super, like I said, superstar. This person's going to make it. They're running all the numbers. It's $2,500 a car. Let me tell you how it's going to shake this up. We're going to be making all the profit. Come to find out, couldn't do it up front. You're buying somebody else's, or you're hiring someone else's headaches. The stuff has to stop. It's got to be driven internally. I'll get some comments here. Sam said the new generation doesn't believe in loyalty. They believe in job hopping. I think that's what she said, hopping. The old school and new school need to find a happy medium.
and that's true.
I don't know.
That is,
I think that they are looking for the grass is always greener. But in reality, when they came on board with dealers, I don't know. Again, I can't. That's why you're here. You're talking about independent space, franchise space. We brought them on in during COVID, and it's pretty much. I mean, it was blast. I mean, we're taking orders. We're making all kinds of money, like hands over fist, and not thinking, twice about it until now. Now all of a sudden, the deal's off, and we actually have to have some skill set to sell cars. And they're
that's
going,
true.
what? Are you kidding me? I'm going to go
Right.
down the street and see if I can't find somebody else I can make all this money, all this profit.
Right. No, they don't want, and again, it's similar. The buy here, pay here, independent world is similar. Where COVID, everybody thought it was going to be a disaster. It ended up being the disaster was we couldn't get enough cars to sell to all the people that wanted to buy them, and you could put almost any price on them you wanted to and sell them, and you still didn't have but 5 cars on the lot at any given moment because it was so crazy. And then we came out of that, and we're on the other side, and yep, it's back to the work. It's a sales job. You've got to sell. You in buy here, pay here world, especially, but I think in all car dealerships, you have got to, as a salesperson, get out there and develop business, and you've got to talk to people outside the dealership, and yep, you got to tell them you sell cars. You might, if you feel like that's as bad as saying I work at the strip joint or something, then you probably don't need to be doing it. You need to be telling everybody, I'm your car guy, I can sell you car, and get back out there and do what we used to do. But like Sam is saying, there is a lot of to the job hopping. They get the job here, they want to jump up the ladder one rung and get the job there, and then jump up the ladder again and try to climb without actually putting in so much of the work. And that's really the key word. I think they don't want to put in the work that we did to get where we are at. And who's to blame? Nobody's to blame. It just is what it is. You were talking a minute ago about, something, and it made me think of, we always had a base of people. Let's say I had 4 salespeople or 5 salespeople in the dealership most of the time, but we always had one office that we called NASA, because those people, whoever went in there, were blasting off pretty quick. And so you're always turning that one over on down there. But the core guys were there doing their job and working hard. And, just trying to find that other superstar is what you were talking about. So
I just think sometimes dealers lose sight, and they bring in folks who claim to fame. And it turns out all they do is breed bad habits, that you're hiring bad habits. You're
Yep.
hearing something different, but you're bringing in an individual that is toxic and that it impedes the success of the store. And, I think Sam had a post on that earlier today in Facebook when he's talking about, when in fact you're breeding the wrong success factor, right? When you're breeding someone, where you bring someone in who you're thinking is going to be the guy or gal, right, with all the answers, and it turns out to be a very toxic situation, right?
True.
That they're
That's
more
true.
high maintenance than what we thought. So here's the other. Let me see. Sorry. Andrew is saying, since buying habits are changing with younger consumers, how do you train the old school car salespeople who are set in their way?
Oh, you need a big stick. No, it's hard. It's hard to do that. That's the old school guy. I'm the old school guy to a certain extent. You want to teach them to sell, but the internet, the CRM, the pre-approval before they ever come to the store. Can we take the car out, drop it in the driveway? I've always joked about that. If you ever tell them, and buy here, pay here, if you tell the lead they're approved and you've got their check stub, and they want to know what the terms are. If you give them any indication that you can give them those terms, they want that car to drop through the telephone and land in the yard with a full tank of gas. They're not want to come in and deal with it. They don't want to come to the dealership and go through the process. And of course, back a few years back, I think that they were saying that years ago, the customer doesn't want to come go through the process, but they still are coming in, want to kick the tires and ride in the car and go through the process. So you just have to show the old school. And there's Ben Misra. How you doing, Ben? They showing the old school. You got to show the old school dealer, the old school salesperson. This is how we're going to succeed at our dealership. And this is what a deal is, and just have to be frank with them. I don't know any other way. That's what I would want. Tell me up front, this is how we have to do it. You got to kind of forget what you know, use your talent to sell, to work with the people, but this is the steps that we have to go through if you want to be successful here. And I don't know any other real great way. There's no magic. There's no dust. There's no, like I said, a big stick. So your input?
Here again, I think that dealers need to define their plan and work their plan. My motto has always been, you don't have to break laws to break records. And I'm just gonna stay there. That's, if we're consistent, we know our plan. Others can follow the plan. What they can't follow is inconsistency and lack of direction. And the reality of it is, when you have a desk manager who's penciling one way versus another, and they decide that they're going to change on a whim, on a dime, it doesn't matter. Or we're going to go from, maybe transparent selling to box closing. We're not consistent in our behavior. Stick to your plan, be consistent, and others will follow. That's my thing. And I think that's what the young generation wants. What the young generation wants is, give me the rules of engagement. Give it to me. Don't change it. Don't tell me this deal and that deal and this other is different from the other. One of the things that's very difficult to do is when you have one desk manager desking one way versus another desk manager desking a different way. And it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And you're asking a salesperson to follow direction. How do you follow direction when everyone's inconsistent? And then it changes their workflow.
And you get the owner that goes to the 20 group and he comes back with all these whiz bang new ideas and tells everybody we're going to change things again or change how it's done. And if everybody doesn't buy in, it kind of takes a while to trend back to the old way. And that
I'm just saying, if you just stick to a plan, and whatever that plan is, whether or not it's revised, this, that, or the other, but the reality of it is, it needs to be, in my world, in where I'm at, where I see most success is is sticking to our guns and not being so willing to change on a dime. It's very difficult to train anyone to change on a dime. If
Sure.
we can change, if we are more consistent in our approach, chances are we're going to have more wins.
Right.
Our great industry. This is Stephen Apicello. Good Apicella, not O. Our great industry is doing a lot of things exceptionally well. Yes. However, there's always room to evolve, embrace what works, and challenges what doesn't. The process of continuous people and processes improvement is how we grow. Absolutely. And it's true. It is. I just think that we as a whole have to be mindful. You know, when you bring folks on and what your expectations are. Sure, it's the car business. Things aren't perfect. We get that. But at the end of the day, if in fact we know what our process is, we know what our plan is, and stick to some of it, the less chance for, for fallout. We've got Mike here. How can dealers how can dealers grow their repeat business with new employees? I'll let you grab that.
What you were just talking about, Becky, the consistency. Their repeat business comes from how customers are treated after they bought the car. More than it is during, if you got new employees, let's say Joe Blow sold the car and he left, and now there's Mary Lou and she's handling the zombie customers or whatever you call them, the ones that were sold by Joe Blow. It's how they treat the customer after the fact. How much do they keep in contact? Are they following up with the customer, or do they greet them when they come into the shop? What does the shop do with the customer when somebody shows up? How do they treat them? Are they consistent? Is the expectation that was laid out by Joe Blow being met when they come back to the dealership, to the shop? Is everybody polite? We were talking about this one time before, Becky, about I've gone into dealerships and you can feel the tension as soon as you walk in the door. Everybody's tense, and it could be the speed of the leader causing the tension or whatever. And then I've been in other stores and it felt great. You could go in there and you could tell they probably fixing to break out a birthday cake. They're having a good time and everybody's comfortable and everybody's greeting people. And, I always had a big follow-up plan. My customers and my salespeople, they need to be talking to each other on a regular basis and making sure that we're doing everything we can. When somebody shows up with a problem, we're turning that over as quickly as possible and trying to not leave it the customer's problem to solve. And so new employees can do that as long as the culture is set up and there is process across the board that we're going to take care of those customers, and somebody's going to take ownership of them and stay with them as they go through the ownership process, not the buying process, but the ownership after.
Well, thank you, Julia Young. I appreciate it. Don't know if you're still here or not with us, but I want to say thank you. Perfectly said, Becky. Is consistency and measurable, right? So one thing I want to say about that, if you don't know where you're at, you have no idea where you're going.
Point A to point
where
B.
you're at, right? And one thing you do, your reports. One of the things that I gravitated to was the fact that Gene's, he's got his reports down. I mean, this is what dealers bring him in for. So he has the facts, Jack.
I know where I want to get to. Yeah. If you don't know where you want to get to, how you know how to get there. And so I try to keep it simple and just have a few, but I want everyone on one page, the salespeople, and know what the desk man and the owner are looking for. What is the numbers we're monitoring? And everyone knows where we are to get to those numbers all the time. And so there's no question, and it's not some surprise. We were talking a little bit about keeping people and cutting down turnover. That's something that I do hear a lot about, especially from the straight commission franchise type operation. What they think they should make on a car, they need to know the minute they sold it, and it's not some $50 Mini after they thought they were making $500 on a car deal. And I hear that a lot. One of our rules were when you sold a car, you got your commission sheet, within an hour after we put it together, so that you knew what you were getting paid, and we're not on payday having that problem. Half the people quitting because they didn't get paid what they thought. So again,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. But you're so right, Gene. I mean, I think that's what we like about, having these conversations. It's like you resonate. It's like you pick up on, and it's like, yay. Pay plans. Pay plans are huge. I mean, if in fact that F&I person, sales manager, whoever salesperson is thinking they're getting paid one way and they're not, that's a huge issue. That's been a huge issue. That's another reason for turnover. Folks
Sure.
don't understand their pay plans,
Right.
and or right, or they don't have that proper roadmap to. I can tell you how many times I've worked with F&I folks, and they're like, Becky, can you sit down with me and go over my pay plan, because I don't even know I'm getting paid. I'm like,
Yeah.
how is that possible? But they don't. And their expectations are really messed up because they're thinking one way. And I'm like, man, let me tell you something. I knew my pay plan. I knew the minute I was pretty excessive, though. I was obsessed.
Yeah. No,
And
that's it.
I would recap a deal in a heartbeat second. I always knew where I was at. I always
Mhm.
knew, because I always watch my pay plan. If in fact you know where you're at, you're able to measure it. And like you said, your expectations have to be right on, because if they're not, and they're blown out of perspective, and this salesperson, sales manager, F&I expect something different, all hell's going to come loose, right?
Sure.
That's one good way to get excessive turnover in stores, for your folks not knowing how to work a pay plan or what they get paid. How can dealers measure the customers of customer engagement with employees? That's a good one.
Mhm. And that comes back around to the if you're just letting the salesperson by themselves deal with the customer all the way through, and then there's no follow up from anyone else in the dealership, there's no engagement at the service department level or anywhere where the customer gives you the opportunity to speak to them again. That's the biggest way. I mean, back in the old days, I worked for the Sewell organization in Dallas market, and so they had a outside firm that did a CSI program that was very important to our pay plan, and that's how we knew what the customers thought. But even that was manipulated, and so honestly, it is back to the person, the owner or the general manager, taking any opportunity when a customer comes in that they can go and talk to them about their experience. Anytime a customer's having problems, somebody in the upper management that needs to know how we're treating people gets in there and deals with a customer that's a heat case or somebody that's upset, and finds out what's going on and how are we handling it and why did you get this upset before you got back here, or whatever that questions are. That's how you're going to find out. That's the only way that I know. Is too many of the managers and too many of the owners are way hands off, and they don't want to deal with all of the daily grind and the people. And it should be kind of the opposite. You got to get out there. I like a manager, put his desk out on the showroom floor and be accessible when you're there, and spend time with some of the customers, even the mad ones, and find out how your folks are talking to them and what they're saying to them. And then that's how you'll start to find a way to dig out of problems that are being created that you're not sure why. You got to get out there and be on the same side with the customer and walk through the process.
Yeah, I think showing is knowing. And you couldn't say it any better. I mean, I think Mike is definitely on that page when it comes to get the sales manager, not even on the showroom floor, get them on the lot, get them out and about, and making them a part of that, the process, the transition, the negotiation. And when that happens, you probably will see definitely an uptick in customer engagement. That's for darn sure. But I also think too, performance isn't right, performance is down. That shows you right there. So, we don't have that right engagement, right? But also your
Mhm.
CSI, customer satisfaction, or customers coming back to our service department. What is that absorption, right? Are we bringing them back into our service department? Talked to a dealer again yesterday. We got into some good stuff, and we talked about how he retains his business. He is at like 87% of customers coming back to his dealership buying vehicles from him. His retention up to 86. I don't know. I think he said 86 months. It's just unbelievable. believable.
That's unheard of these days, but
It,
yeah, that's
how you
excellent.
measure it. It's like
Yep.
he's on it. He's measuring this stuff. So, but again, he's a dealer who's hands on. It's important that he knows what's happening front. And he told me, Becky, I know what's going on from the time that customer touches down on my dealership website to sit my sales department. They are in alignment. We are aligned. We're connected.
That's
Sales
it.
desk to F&I. And that's how that's how the magic is.
If you're going to be the man, you got to be the man, even if you're the woman, but if you're going to be the owner and you're going to be the guy and you want answers and you don't want to be awake at night wondering what the hell's going on, you got to kind of be in the process. And that's the only way that I know, I know that we could solve a lot of things with a lot of people, a lot of dealerships, if the manager or the owner would be more involved and do more to be hands-on with his people and finding out what's going on and spending time with them every day. That's where the success is going to come from. Knowing the expectation, understanding how to make a deal happen in your dealership, and you as an owner understanding what's happening to your customers throughout their ownership experience, that'll help a lot.
Well, I think we had a great first Unfiltered Dealer Talk podcast today, and I'm looking forward to next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we're getting into the weeds. We are actually getting into more of subprime, and you're going to be talking about a little bit more on that buy here, pay here. And for those dealers too, franchise dealers who really see the value behind subprime and holding on to the interest earned through buy here, pay here. You talk a little bit on that lease, buy here, pay here, which intrigues the heck out of me. I think we need to dive deep in that a little bit. I think it's going to be exciting.
All right,
and,
let's do it.
Yeah, it will be absolutely exciting. I don't know if I have any lasting remarks. And Peter, terrific content. Thank you. He's somebody.
Yeah, that's great.
He is certainly amazing, and he has one of the best reporting platforms out there, Vision AST. So make it a point, guys. Listen in, watch Peter. He is going places for sure, and he can customize it, your reporting, however which way you want. So he's quite clever. In fact, I think that they're adding components in service too. So he's good people. So thanks, Pete.
Sure.
I appreciate you coming in and saying hi. And again, I appreciate everyone for being here today, and look forward to next Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Absolutely. Let's talk buy here, pay here, and lease here, pay here, and anything that we can do. I'm going to be we'll cover it all and show you how things work together in both sides of the business world out there, and buy here, pay here, and independent, and some of the places that do both. I just came from a place that does both. A big group in South Carolina that has a big buy here, pay here operation, so that it does work in those dealerships. So let's talk about that.
And I grew up, believe it or not, where we had dealers and still there are dealers, franchise dealers that do in-house financing. So we're going to talk about why some of them failed miserably versus why some get it and know how to operate that book of business, because you got to have that bank hat on, right? And you got to have your due diligence in place. But once you get that put together, it's almost like reinsurance, right? And so some dealers get it. Some dealers don't want nothing to do with it, understand. But definitely subprime is here to stay. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why dealers need to wrap their hands around however way you want to call it, subprime, slow pay history, however which way it makes you feel better. But at the end of the day, good things happen, bad things happen to good folks all the time. How do we get to that customer sooner? How do we understand the customer credit criteria, their budget, to make sure that we're landing the customer on the right vehicle to begin with and maximize more sales and profits?
That's it. Let's make money. That's what we're here to do, and take care of customer base and be good for customers. And all of us, every dealership that is listening and everybody out there, I know that you have bad credit customers walking into your dealership. I know that. And so why not have another way to help them by having your own controlled financing. I've said this plenty of times. You make $2,500 on a car selling it as a used car, but maybe in buy here, pay here, some of those cars can make $10,000, $11,000. So there's a lot of good reason to be in buy here, pay here, and so we're gonna cover that over the next several weeks. We're going to cover a lot of those topics and how they mix together and ways to help it make it work. And hopefully we'll answer a bunch of questions for everybody and be informative and have a little bit of fun with it too.
Well, that's what it's all about. So guys, I told you it was going to go 30 minutes in. We're a little bit behind. We're a little bit more than that, but that was all good information, good content, good feedback. So yes, I'll see you guys next Tuesday, 2 p.m. with Gene. Thank you, guys.
Bye, Becky.
Bye.